Hey, everybody. So for those of you in the crowd, you can scan that QR code, go to the website. There's a free tier for our tool. You can follow along, test whatever you want. But we are GoCharlie, a full stack generative AI company. That means we build our own language models, image models, as well as AI agent, which is what we're all here today. But our mission is just making your life easier with AI. I think on a personal basis, I worked at SoftBank before I was here, and I was feeling super burnt out. I hated my job. And to maybe be a little dramatic, AI sort of saved my life. AI was what gave me a new spirit towards business, and it's what ultimately helped me build this company. So we use Charlie to build the company itself. I like for people to know who's actually talking to them and where they came from. I think that's just a way to connect with the audience. But previously, I was at SoftBank's Vision Funds. Before that, at Uber's ATG Group. Before that, in New York and Chicago for KPMG's Deal Advisory Group. But maybe some unsolicited facts that you didn't know. I'm a 35-time groomsman, so if anyone has a speech coming up or needs to know what not to do at a wedding, I got you covered. I'm a published poet. That's a weird one, but putting it out there. 3-time wedding officiant. And the most commented on part of my resume in college, intramural dodgeball champion. So obscure facts that you didn't need to know, but hopefully lets you know who's speaking to you today. So the team behind GoCharlie is 6 people. We recently added 2 folks. We have 2 AI PhDs with over 20 years of applied AI experience. Ryan Carlton's our CTO, 4-time founder, AWS extraordinaire. Masha Titova is our new CMO. We're going to actually run some stuff for her former business. She founded a lingerie company, previously worked at LVMH and Yeezy, and then Tim Burton is our master extraordinaire engineer that just joined. But today, we're going to talk a little bit about agents. Don't worry, I'm not going to go super technical in this. I know this is a room of more marketers, but I think it's important to delineate the distinction between the two. So ChatGPT, or GPT-3 for those that were around in the earlier days, is a large language model. That's great. What's the difference between a large language model and an agent? Large language model typically takes an input, goes and executes a task, comes back with one output. Usually a vending machine experience, the way I describe it. You press a button, you get something back. An agent is a much more evolved experience. An agent takes a much more complex task, a much more ambiguous task, and is able to execute and reason on your behalf. So if you go all the way from the spectrum of little Charlie, that's an LLM, all the way to an agent, that just means that you have ambiguity and complexity that can be addressed by the AI itself without having to check in with you. Another way to think about this, an LLM is like hiring a really fancy intern. An agent is like hiring a manager. So think about it that way. Just different levels of ambiguity and complexity they can address. Now, Charlie is a little bit of a different type of agent. So if you've been following the Auto GPT stuff, the Baby AGI stuff, that is more LLM-based agents. What they're basically doing is just making calls to the same agent. Charlie's a cognitive agent. That means we built an AI brain. That means it has short-term memory of the context you're giving it. It also has long-term memory about you as a user and how you're using the tool, and ultimately learns and develops with you. This creates some stickiness. It creates a better product experience over time. But most importantly, it allows for limitless capabilities because as it learns more, as it learns your workflows, it's going to adapt to you and evolve. We also add tools to this. But what does that mean in a practical sense? So I know there's a lot of text on the screen, but what it means is that you can actually execute insanely difficult prompts. Something that you might give an agency to execute over the course of a month for your business, or that you might give a copywriter to execute over a week previously, or that you might just be using different aspects or different models to do. So this one is a very complex prompt, but what happens is it goes into the cognitive agent, and the agent has access to a whole bunch of software tooling, as well as its own LLMs, its own image models, its own text to video, its own transcription models, and ultimately uses all of these tools to execute that task. So a cognitive agent is a layer that sits over top and calls our proprietary models to work with it. Now, our vision in the future is that we would have a whole bunch of these agents working together simultaneously. This means that instead of just doing like a research and create post, you'll be able to say, identify my top 3 performing brands over the last 10 months, execute a plan over the next 36 months to 30x. We're talking about large scale AIs as employees that work as your business. The way I think about it is AI will first be an operating system for your business, and then it'll start operating your business. Which, if we think AI is going to replace a lot of labor, wouldn't we want an AI we can tell to go run a side hustle for us, make us a little extra money? So that's really what we're aiming to do. But I think it's more fun if we get to take Charlie for a walk. So there's going to be a couple times where I call out to the crowd. If you are the one that we pick, you will get some free usage of Charlie. There will also be some gifts for the whole crowd here as a thank you for the time that you've given. So with that, if you haven't already logged in, this is going to be the product experience for you. So I think that's a little bit easier to see. So this is the main workspace. At the top, you have your workspace name. I watched the Barbie movie and named my workspace after the Mojo Dojo Casa house, if there's any Barbie fans in the room. But it's a super simple interface, super clean. But maybe you're a little bit newer to prompt engineering. We give you the capabilities to go into different types of prompts that you might want to use. But this is not just your simple chat GPT. And I'm going to show you how, but we're going to start with simple, and we're going to build up from there. So is anyone in here familiar with the old San Francisco bar in the marina called Marengo? Anyone? No one. Okay, so I have a vision. I like speakeasies, I like cocktails, I like jazz, and I like places where you can maybe move a bookshelf and you get to go have some secrecy. So there's a bar called Marengo in the marina that's since shut down and is the perfect spot for it. But I don't know what to call this business. I want a speakeasy at night. I want to have a coffee place during the day. I want some jazz on Friday nights. Why don't we just have Charlie start to help us with this? So, Charlie, I want to start a speakeasy that doubles as a coffee shop during the day. Suggest some names for me. Super simple, right? We're just typing a plain, easy prompt. ChatGPT might be able to do this. It's going to come back with a list of things, but it's ultimately choosing its knowledge in research of different capabilities in the background to come back with these. So it comes back with some great ones. Anyone want to shout out one that looks good to them? The Midnight Mugs? 15. All right. The Midnight Mugs it is. Cool. All right. So this is a really cool feature that we've added with Charlie. So in this bottom part, you'll see that you can edit or create. Edit or create. So what I'm going to do here is click it to create mode. Create uses the active content here to create fresh new content. So I can say is, I like the Midnight Mugs. Can you create a brand profile for this business? Simple stuff, but it's going to use that first output as the input for creating this. So now we have a chat-like experience, but it's creating fresh new content. Promise you it starts to get a little bit more advanced from here. So hold on tight. So now we have this brand profile, the Midnight Mugs. 2,000 characters, comes back with a beautiful description of the business, how it should be talked about. That's all fine and dandy. Also, if at any point you forget the prompt that you use, you can simply go here and look at it. But we'll hide that away for the moment. Okay, so now I have the brand profile. Let's make some content. All right, so use this brand profile to create a post for Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and a article to go in SF Eater about this business. Again, we're in create mode, so it's going to be able to use the active content to ultimately create it. Now, this is a bit more of a complex prompt, right? We're asking for multiple outputs using a single input, but we're also asking it to understand the context of what an article would look like, what an Instagram post looks like, what a LinkedIn post, what a tweet looks like. For those of you that don't know, there are character limits, tonality recommendations, different structures of content for each one of these platforms. That's what we tried to focus on with GoCharlie is multi-input, multi-output, but goes the last mile so that the results you get are ready to publish. You don't want an AI that makes you do more work. You want an AI that does the work for you. So what we're going to come back here with is all of these outputs ready to go, ready to publish, and you'll ultimately be able to use those for the opening of said restaurant. So we'll come back in just a second. Looks like Charlie is going a little bit slower than he normally likes to do. But maybe what's going on in the background here is Charlie's calling the different engines he has for each of those platforms, calling his different knowledge bases for different types of content to create for each one of these needs. Now, when it comes back, I'm going to start to use some of that to create even more. But some of the capabilities we probably won't get into just yet today is that you can create memes, you can create GIFs, you can create images, all from the same prompts. All you have to do is simply type it in like it's natural language, similar to the way that you would just ask an assistant to be able to go create that content for you. Which I'm doing the cardinal sin and it's taking longer in a live demo, but maybe let's, while we're waiting for Charlie to finish up that task, what you can do at any point in time is you can say add content. So add content will allow you to go do something completely different, but all in the context of the same project. So let's say that the Midnight Mugs is opening on Saturday. Can you create a series of 6 tweets to advertise the opening to my future customers? While we're waiting on that to finish out, we'll do a quick refresh to make sure this all comes out. Great. So what happens here is we had the brand profile. We're running that other prompt in the background right now, but then we had an Instagram post, we had a Facebook post for LinkedIn, post for Twitter, as well as a blog that announces all of the key parts of the launch. So we'll be able to use that for the SF Eater article. But as you can see, this allows you to do multiple things at once, multiple inputs at once. But then what you can also do, if you prefer to go this way, is let's say that you are a marketing agency and you have a client that has their own brand brief. What you can do is use that brand brief to not only provide guidance, but also make Charlie stay within the frame that they've given you. So this is Titov. Titov is a lingerie company that my CMO created before she joined us. And Titov is about being your own woman, about being empowered, about being an empowered woman. So what you can do here is say, using the brand guidelines in the attached file, create a series of posts for Instagram with stock photos that can be posted during the launch of our new fall collection. So just another example of one of Charlie's capabilities, but what you can do now is start to attach files. You can actually drop in URLs. You can do multiple URLs. So what we've tried to create is this content engine where you can ultimately use anything as an input, create anything as an output. We have a very fast follow of images as an input, as well as video and audio as an input, YouTube URLs, pretty much anything you can think of, you'll be able to throw into the content mixer to ultimately be able to create anything else that you want. So I'll leave it there. I know that we're tight on time. I'll finish out with a couple just key points of what's coming down the line. So we actually have developed our own large language model. So some of the posts that you saw, the reason that they were able to adhere to the different types of content that we wanted to create ultimately was based upon our own language model powering the platform. So Charlie's a 3 billion parameter model. It's outperforming ChatGPT and GPT-4 for all marketing-based use cases, trained on 1.5 trillion tokens. So that's a little bit more technical speak, but that means it's 100 times cheaper to run, 100 times cheaper to customize and fine-tune. And it will be available via AWS and API for those of you in the room that want to build on top of it later this fall. Last but not least this is just the beginning for us. This is a very ambitious project. It's coding in real time to access tools as necessary. But the agent launch just happened. So if you were part of the AI party last week, that's great. But then we'll launch the API, the mobile app, a Chrome extension, a proactive agent where Charlie starts to recommend content to you before you even ask. And then ultimately a multimodal model launch. We're developing that with SRI, the guys that did Siri, that will allow us to do text and images in and text and images out, all in the same model. So there's a way for you to be able to just simply make edits to all the outputs that were happening. The other way that you could do it in a more hacky way is you could just rerun the prompt with a little bit more information about the brand. But yes, you can theoretically edit that in real time. I'll reveal a little secret. I think there's been this thinking that large language models take billions of dollars to train. And I think we dispelled that. We just closed a $2 million pre-seed round. So obviously we don't have billions to spend on it. we actually trained it for less than 50 grand, but we have 2 AI extraordinaires that did that. So I think we didn't have to do as much experimentation as many people would. My recommendation to businesses is always still like, if you are planning on training your own model, probably go out and see if someone else can build it for you a little cheaper or adapt an open source model to you. Building your own is such a involved process to even get it to a working level of functionality. They are probably better off outsourcing until you know for sure that you need to make that investment. So early days, we got it from a couple different places. We had some clients that were willing to share data with us in experimental ways so that we could give them cutting edge technology. Then we also have redacted information from our customers using the product. We've since stopped doing that entirely because we found a better way to do it, which is let's come up with the ideal way that a piece of content like this should look like and use the language model itself to alter and make variations of it so we can ultimately use synthetic data. So we're using a heavy amount of synthetic data and then using the AI brain to be able to vary those outputs. So ultimately, it's been through that. In the future, what I imagine will happen is we'll use redacted client information as they're willing to share it and use it to improve the models. But again, that'll be on a case-by-case basis. It is. We can generate images. I just didn't do that as part of the demo, but yes, we can generate images, funny memes, GIFs. We can even pull from stock photo libraries if you wish to do that instead. So we have one of the most advanced image models on the market coming online next week, actually.
Okay.
So it's our own adaptation of a couple open source models with some enhancements thrown on top. But I completely agree with you. The visual part of marketing is definitely needed to coincide with the text part. If you want to fine tune OpenAI's models, there's a significant capital outlay or minimum to do so. That's getting smaller these days with 3.5 and GPT-4 to be able to do it. But one of the things that we realized is the future is going to be a bunch of different models working together to complete a task. We have about 10 different models running in the background at any given time. And so for those models to work together in a way that makes sense, in a way that's cost effective, in a way that doesn't just destroy your company with a compute bill, you need them to be nimble enough and you need them to be able to do the exact tasks that you need them to. So it's not so different from current day, like microservices versus monolith. Different people are going to have different preferences. We felt for what we were trying to do, the best path was to create smaller models, domain specific, and then have the agent ultimately be able to bring them all together as one system. I don't think even I had full appreciation for how nuts SRI is. So for those that don't know, SRI has been around for like 75 years. They've done technology development for NASA and some of the craziest government projects that you probably will never hear about. But the most noticeable one is that their technology is in pretty much every device that you have now. Namely, if you're an Apple person, they did Siri. Now, Siri, relative to many of the AI that's available now, is not so great, but they were the minds behind that. And so what we're working on them to develop is a multimodal model. Now, we talked about a bunch of different models working together. There's a lot of people that think one model to rule them all will be a multimodal model. Multimodal, for those that don't know, just means that it's kind of like senses. A modality is almost like a sense. Like you can see, you can smell, you can write, you can paint, you can do that. That's kind of what it is. So a multimodal model that can effectively take images and text in and create images and text all in one prompt. So you're not doing multiple models, you're not going across many models. So it's our way of kind of looking around the corner of where that might work, because maybe you want to just run one model as opposed to several. But then you could add audio, video, whatever you want on top of it. So that's the project we're working on with them, which is pretty ambitious for a 2-person AI team. But I think we're pretty close on it now, which is exciting. So right now we're building ways to distribute to those social media platforms. But the next evolution, the next tier, the business tier that we're developing, will allow you to see some of those performance metrics. And then when we were talking about the proactive agent on our roadmap, what that will effectively do is monitor the performance, compare that to a benchmark, say if it's not performing as good as it should be, then create new content to ultimately override that. So that's what we want to get to, is ultimately, instead of you having to assess it, the AI can start to do that process for you.